Marcus Aurelius wasn't just a philosopher, he was a Roman emperor, a ruler of an empire, a commander of armies, a man surrounded by chaos, and yet, his greatest teachings weren't about power or conquest. They were about peace, the kind that comes from within. In his meditations, Marcus wrote not for an audience, but for himself. Private reflections scribbled between battles, notes on how to stay calm in the face of cruelty, reminders to be disciplined, compassionate, and grounded even when the world was falling apart. That's what makes his wisdom so enduring. He didn't speak from the mountaintop of theory, he wrote from the trenches, with dirt on his hands and burdens on his back. At the heart of his teachings is one revolutionary idea: you cannot control the world, but you can control how you meet it. You can't stop the storm, but you can learn to anchor yourself inside it. He believed the only true freedom was found in the mastery of our own thoughts. That peace wasn't the absence of hardship, but the ability to remain unshaken by it. In many ways, Marcus was a man ahead of his time. He wrote about mindfulness long before it became a trend, about letting go of ego, embracing humility, and showing kindness even to those who don't deserve it. He knew what modern psychology has only recently begun to articulate: that perspective shapes reality, that suffering is intensified not just by what happens, but by how we react. Marcus reminded himself daily: you could be betrayed, you could lose everything, you could face death, disgrace, pain, but none of that is you. What matters is how you carry yourself through it. And that's the lesson for us too. When the world feels loud, hostile, unfair, we don't have to match its chaos. We can step back, breathe, refocus. We can remind ourselves, like he did, you have power over your mind, not outside events. It's not easy, it requires practice, patience, and a deep willingness to stop trying to control the uncontrollable. But once you let go of the need to change everything around you, you begin to realize how much strength you already carry inside you. Peace, he taught us, doesn't mean silence. It means clarity in noise, calm in motion, strength through surrender. That's the legacy of Marcus Aurelius, not as a ruler of people, but as a ruler of his own mind. And in a world that still spins too fast, his voice remains, a quiet anchor, a reminder that we can always return to ourselves, no matter the storm. Lao Tzu didn't shout his wisdom from the rooftops, he whispered it, like water moving around stone. His teachings, collected in the Tao Te Ching, are soft yet unshakable. They speak of flow, surrender, and the deep intelligence of nature. And they remind us of a truth we often forget: you don't always have to push. In a culture obsessed with control, hustle, and outcome, Lao Tzu offers something radical: let go of rigidity. Let go of forcing. Let go of needing to be anything other than what you already are. To him, the highest wisdom came from observing nature, how rivers find their way not by cutting through rock but by moving around it. He wrote that softness triumphs over hardness, that the flexible outlasts the rigid, and that yielding isn't weakness, it's strength misunderstood. This is the way of the Tao, the path of harmony. It doesn't resist life, it moves with it. And that's what makes Lao Tzu one of the greatest minds to ever contemplate the human condition. He understood that our suffering often comes not from what happens, but from how tightly we cling to what we think should happen. We fight the current, resist the shift, argue with reality. And in doing so, we exhaust ourselves. But what if you didn't have to force it? What if there was power in patience, in waiting for the right moment, the right energy, the right opening, and then flowing into it effortlessly? Lao Tzu's philosophy isn't passive, it's responsive. It trusts timing. It trusts intuition. It trusts that life, like water, always finds its level. When you stop trying to define yourself, you begin to discover who you are. When you stop trying to control outcomes, you allow them to unfold. And when you stop fighting life's currents, you find that they were trying to carry you all along. In our modern world, surrender is often misunderstood. We equate it with giving up. But Lao Tzu saw it differently. Surrender isn't about defeat, it's about alignment. It's the art of getting out of your own way. So when you feel stuck, when nothing is working, when you've pushed so hard that you're ready to break, maybe the answer isn't more effort. Maybe it's less. Maybe it's silence, stillness, softness. Maybe the path isn't forged by force, but revealed through still water, reflecting everything clearly when you finally stop stirring it. Lao Tzu knew this, and in his quiet voice he reminds us, let go and become. Viktor Frankl didn't just study suffering, he lived it. As a Jewish psychiatrist imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps during World War II, he lost everything: his home, his freedom, his family. But what he refused to lose was his purpose. In the ashes of one of humanity's darkest chapters, he uncovered a truth that became the core of his life's work. Human beings can endure nearly anything if they believe it means something. Frankl believed we are not simply driven by pleasure or power, we are driven by meaning. Even in the camps, where cruelty was routine, where death hung thick in the air, he noticed something remarkable: those who could still find a reason to live, however fragile, had a better chance of surviving. For one man, it might be the hope of seeing his wife again; for another, the desire to finish a manuscript. For Frankl, it was the belief that he could one day teach the world what suffering had taught him. He called this idea logotherapy, the belief that healing begins not when we eliminate pain, but when we uncover meaning inside it. This doesn't mean romanticizing trauma, it doesn't mean pretending pain is beautiful, it means acknowledging that suffering is part of life, and asking, what can I do with it? Can it soften me? Can it connect me more deeply with others? Can it fuel something greater than itself? Frankl wrote that we don't get to choose many of our circumstances, but we do get to choose how we respond. Even when everything is taken, we still hold the last human freedom, the ability to choose our attitude. It's a radical idea, not easy, but incredibly empowering, because if meaning can be found in a concentration camp, then surely it can be found in our ordinary heartbreaks, our everyday struggles, our hidden griefs. We look for answers in logic, in therapy, in books. But sometimes what we need most is simply to ask, what does this mean to me? What will I make of this? Frankl's work doesn't offer quick fixes. It offers something deeper, a reminder that life is asking us a question, and we are the answer. So when the world feels senseless, when pain feels pointless, when you're walking through your own private darkness, try not to run from it, sit with it, speak to it, ask it what it wants to teach you. Because meaning doesn't erase suffering, but it transforms it. And as Frankl proved, that's often the difference between giving up and going on. Centuries after his death, Rumi still speaks, and not just to scholars or mystics, but to anyone who has ever grieved, yearned, or cracked open from the weight of living. He wasn't a scientist, he wasn't a king, he was a poet, but somehow his words reached deeper than data ever could. Rumi understood that the heart is a doorway, not just to love but to awakening. And more than that, he saw that pain, the very thing we try to avoid, was often the key that unlocked it. In the wound, he said, is where the light enters. Think about that. We spend so much of life trying to protect ourselves from hurt. We armor up, we distract, we avoid the messy middle of emotion. But Rumi looked straight into that pain and bowed to it. To him, heartbreak wasn't a detour, it was a teacher. Loss wasn't the end, it was an invitation. Every ache of the soul, he believed, pointed us back toward something sacred, because suffering softens us. It strips away our illusions, it humbles the ego and awakens the spirit. And when we stop resisting that process, when we feel it all the way through, something in us begins to open. Rumi called that opening the beloved. Others call it God, or the universe, or the higher self. But no matter the name, the path is the same. Go into the longing, into the ache, into the questions that have no answers. His poetry dances between the personal and the divine. One moment he's speaking of lovers, the next of oneness. Because for Rumi, everything is a mirror. Every relationship, every joy, every sorrow is meant to bring you closer to the truth inside yourself. And that truth, you are already connected, already whole, already enough. The pain just reminds you to remember. When life shatters, as it inevitably does, you can fall into bitterness, or you can fall into the heart. That's what Rumi invites us to do, to surrender, not because we're defeated, but because there is beauty waiting in the broken pieces. He knew that the soul doesn't need perfection. It just needs permission to feel, to open, to love without holding back. So when you find yourself hurting, when the wound is fresh and the world feels small, don't rush to fix it. Sit with it, let it breathe, let it teach. Because in that tender place, there is light, there is poetry, there is you, more open, more honest, and more alive than ever before. Carl Jung didn't just study the mind, he studied the soul. He believed that inside every person lived a vast, mysterious terrain, a personal unconscious layered with dreams, shadows, archetypes, and forgotten truths. And unlike many thinkers of his time, Jung didn't believe healing came only from logic or analysis. He believed it came from integration, from facing what we fear, naming what we hide, and bringing the hidden parts of ourselves into the light. To Jung, the greatest journey a person could take wasn't outward, but inward. He called this individuation the process of becoming whole, not perfect, not polished, whole. And to get there, we must be willing to look into the mirror, not the one that shows our face, but the one that shows our patterns, our projections, our pain. He taught that we all carry a shadow, the parts of us we deny, suppress, or disown, the anger we avoid, the jealousy we dismiss, the fear we refuse to name. But the shadow isn't bad, it's misunderstood. And when we reject it, we stay fragmented. Jung believed that the work of the soul is not to eliminate the shadow but to befriend it, to recognize its voice, to understand what it's protecting, and through that understanding to become more fully ourselves. Because when we look inside, really look, we don't just find wounds, we find wisdom, ancient knowing, symbols and dreams that connect us not only to our personal truth, but to the collective stories of humanity. Jung spoke of the self, the unified center of consciousness and unconsciousness, the part of us that holds all our contradictions, and it is through inner reflection, dream work, creativity, and deep inquiry that we slowly reconnect with it. In a world addicted to outward achievement, Jung invites us inward, not to escape, but to awaken, to stop performing and start listening, to stop striving and start integrating. He taught that depression is often a call to descend, an initiation, a signal that the soul is asking for attention, for truth, for wholeness, for depth. So if you feel lost, if you're cycling through the same patterns, if you're drawn to the mysterious but don't know why, trust that it's your inner world whispering. And if you're brave enough to listen, to turn inward, to make peace with the mirror, you will find not just healing but a deeper sense of who you really are. Jung's work reminds us, the world outside will always offer distraction, but the world within, that's where the real treasure lives. And when you turn toward it, you don't just awaken, you come home.